government debt is $1.2 trillion and growing. So with a rate cut and a bond rally, maybe it'll go all the way down to 1.0 trillion. Whoop-de-doo. Not going to mean a whole lot in the financial sector. All right, these are the trillion-dollar players. And I think the BRICS are going to be making the rules. They're going to be dumping the treasuries, and they're going to be buying gold. They're going to be making trade payment devices. So watch the Kazar October BRICS meeting.
Debt bubbles everywhere. These debt bubbles don't seem to be bursting. Why?
Because we've got funny money. The United States prints money, hands it to Wall Street, and they buy a panicky day in the stock market where the Dow and the S&P 500 go down. They just throw in funny money. We have been perverting and subverting the coin of the realm for 50 years, 53 years, and it's getting a lot worse. Notice that even though we've not had the debt bubbles decline, get wrecked, we still have the depression, the inflationary depression. For those who don't think we have an inflationary depression, you're the dumbest guys in the room. Man or woman, you're the dumbest guys in the room. Our inflation is 7 or 8%, which means if we call it 2, they're lying by 5. And if we say we're stalling on the economy, then we really have a 5% economic decline. That's called a depression. We have an inflationary depression, and we are supporting the bubbles, and we're also supporting the dead banks. The FDIC is fast at work, but the 2 a.m. Fed bailouts that don't get into the press are numerous. Okay, move on.
Could lower interest rates save the housing market?
No, not really. You really have to get rid of the Dem fascists. You really have to have proper, responsible economic policy and financial policy. You need to get rid of the people who are hell-bent on destroying the economy in order to earn credit badges with Satan. And I don't mean that in any facetious manner. Lower interest rates will reduce somewhat the bond losses that are unrealized. They will reduce somewhat the decline in commercial property, which is magnificent, like 50, 70% declines. Maybe there'll only be 40 to 60% declines. That's still a disaster. We're in the midst of a U.S. government debt default. You can't lower rates during a debt default. We really should be 10 to 15% for Treasury bonds, but we can't do that because it would shut down everything. They want to keep the government operating until Trump takes over and brings about more responsible policy making across the entire spectrum. That means they stop blowing up food processing centers. They stop blowing up fuel refinery centers, plants. They stop with the migration. Most of the job creation in the last 6 months has been with the unvetted migrants. We have 1.3 million jobs by citizens that were lost upon solamente, that's Spanish, only the revision for the false economic reporting of the last year to benefit the Biden-Harris bullshit fascist show demo. Okay, we need a lot more than interest rate cuts. We need to reindustrialize the nation. I just got an idea, and, a lot of people think, well, that's crazy, Jim. I don't care if people think it's crazy. The more people think it's crazy, the more logical it probably is, because most of my best forecasts that have come true have been highly criticized. I think we should make credits for U.S. corporations to bring jobs back home. I think we should make a tax penalty for doing an offshore move, like the big 3 car companies expanding in Mexico. Slap a major tariff on that and an extra tax on that. Bring them home. We're not bringing industry home. We're still operating under the globalization principle of the satanic globalists who operate the fascist Dem Party, where there's no democratic order at all. We got a long way to go. I don't think the housing market, led by the commercial decline, I don't think that's going to bottom out for another 2 years.
What's the latest on the Japanese financial crisis?
They're struggling to sell their treasury bonds. They're struggling to increase their gold reserves. They're struggling to notify the globe of that fact in order to have a lift in their yen currency. And at the same time, their currency goes down from dumping the treasury bonds. So they're in a very tight spot. They're struggling to avoid assassinations for abandoning. They're dealing with a vaccine exposure. They've got what they claim to be 500,000 deaths from the vaccine. They're trying to kick out Rahm Emanuel. There might be a bounty on his head of $100 million paid in gold. The Japanese are in a crisis, and they're going to remain in a crisis for some time. They've got to revert to the gold standard and avoid collapsing their economy and their banks. They've got their work cut out.
What's the latest with China's financial crisis?
Well, they got two big problems. One is the Evergrande, that big conglomerate of construction, property management, and banks, and a whole lot more. I heard they had 1,300 projects. That's what I read. And that was back in October of 21. So here we are 3 years later, and they've not fixed it. Why have they not fixed it? Because they have no bankruptcy laws and procedures. And I'll tell you why they don't. If they did a bankruptcy procedure, they'd have to dissolve the Chinese Communist Party. All right, that's one problem. So they're going to rot in place. Their banks, their property management, and their construction. They're going to rot in place. At the same time, they're going through a very big transition of getting rid of their treasury bonds, but they like holding some treasury bonds in volume in order to tell the United States what to do. They're using them for bribery. They're using them for control center. Believe it or not, ex-Governor Cuomo of New York admitted that the Chinese have infiltrated New York and many other states for policymaking at the political and banking level. This has to be reversed, and it's not going to be easy because they are in the U.S. military. And they are all through Canada running everything in Canada. Everything in Canada, including mineral mining and energy production. So the Chinese have done something. The second part is that they are taking their surpluses from trade, and they're no longer buying treasury bonds. They're dumping the treasury bonds while they use them as a control mechanism. And they're buying gold with the surplus. So they're moving toward a gold standard just like Japan. But Japan has got a lot more problems because the United States has been really in their face for 70 years. What am I saying? Since 1945. Japan is a vassal state. Germany is a vassal state. Germany is now working secretly with Russia, trying to do workarounds of the sanctions without having their own leaders assassinated and maybe put in prison under false charges by the U.S., UK, NATO cabal. Okay, China is in a big, big problem regarding Evergrande that's not been fixed, and they are doing their best to move toward the gold standard with a lot of success.
Less than 2 months until Election Day in the U.S. Are you expecting crazy things to happen between now and then?
Yes, I am, but only a third as much as the fearmongers are. 1/3 as much as the fearmongers are. I've been talking to a lot of different people who expect everything to go to shit. Riots on the streets, unavailable food, doubling of price inflation, maybe a new front for war, and we're just not going to get that. And I'll tell you why, and it's a very optimistic, promising perspective. It's not going to happen because the White Hats, the White Alliance, the global military alliance called the White Alliance, they are in far more control than the people are aware of. They've done a lot of election reforms, and there's going to be, I think, arrests at the election centers as they happen, as the fraud occurs. And it's a little bit mysterious how all that is going to unfold. But notice that we've not had the Marburg virus, which is a combination of the Ebola and smallpox with a 70% deadly rate, 30% recovery rate. We've not had that. Notice that the monkeypox is not taking root. They're trying. The World Health Organization is trying to promote a panic, pointing out certain parts of the world, like in, I think, Kenya or Congo or wherever. Oh my gosh, they got 20 cases of monkeypox. Well, my reaction is, who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? Maybe there are 3 cases of Ebola in Kenya. Maybe there are 4 cases of Ebola in Ghana. Maybe there are 2 cases of Ebola in Nigeria. Who gives a shit? Manage it. You don't shut down the global economy and enable mail-in ballots for a repeat of the travesty of 2020. Okay, I have a joke in my August report that they found the source of the monkeypox, and it was in the valleys of California, and they found the monkey, and its head looked exactly like Bill Gates. A monkey with the head of Bill Gates. That's the source of monkeypox. So deal with it, like we always do. You don't shut down the global economy, even if there are even a dozen or 2 dozen cases. You deal with it. Then you have a fair election, arrest all the fraud players, and you move on. I don't think we're going to have a lot of craziness, but I do expect we're going to have 5 times as many migrant gangs causing violent situations like we've had in Texas, Colorado, Chicago, and Los Angeles. The one that bothers me the most is that the gangs in Los Angeles are threatening school buses with little kids. If they take over a group of school buses and hold 200 little kids hostage, we're going to have a national situation. Right now, they're taking over an apartment building in Chicago, an apartment building, a small one in Aurora, Colorado, and they're threatening an oil field in Texas. In 6 weeks, we might have 10 more such stories. And what it's going to do is work against the fascist Dem Party, where those locations are with the violence and the threats by the migrants. The people in those states are not going to vote for Harris. So, unfortunately, if they get worse, it'll be favoring Trump.
If you were the president of the United States in 2025 and basically the de facto president of the world, what would you do to clean up the mess?
I would do emergency broadcasts of Chinese bribery, treason, and Geneva fascist uberlord influence. There's bribery with the U.S. government, the Congress, the courts, the military, and several key corporations. There's bribery from the Chinese and the Geneva crowd. The Geneva crowd is using Ukraine money laundering. And here's something that didn't come up. I didn't find a context for. But there could be a couple $1 trillion of mineral wealth in Ukraine. I believe a piece of that is the oil and gas deposits, Burisma, Hunter Biden and all that. But there's mineral wealth. Oil and gas is never called mineral. It's called resource. I'm talking about uranium, industrial metals, strategic metals. That's one of the reasons why the U.S., UK, NATO cabal with headquarters in Geneva, they will not give up. They will not surrender. They will just let the last man and woman die in Ukraine to defend the $1 trillion in mineral wealth in Ukraine. I would do the emergency broadcast to reveal first the bribery for many different sectors in the U.S. economy and Canadian economy and leadership. And then part 2, I would reveal the narcotics and child trafficking and adrenochrome trafficking, adrenochrome farms. Russia now has the job. They've decided we will now take on the duty of revealing the Ukraine child trafficking, adrenochrome farms, white woman trafficking, narcotics trafficking, and publicize the dollar value, which I estimate at $50 billion a month. If I were president, I would reveal the bribery and reveal the trafficking and have death sentences for those who are captured involved. I would open all that up. I would prosecute them, and I would institute a fair, even if it's a hand-counted voting system for tabulation. And I would have strict enforcement to make sure that election tabulation is not connected to the internet. I mean, if 6 different cities and 20 different counties in each state need to get their data to the center, well, then do it with phone calls. Do it with a courier. Don't do it with the internet because it's hackable. Okay, so, it would be revealing the bribery, revealing the trafficking and all the income, pointing out the treason, prosecuting it all, and bring about fair elections. And then lastly, bring about a magnificent reindustrialization with some of the concepts I brought up. Put a penalty on outsourcing American industry. Rockefeller led that in the 70 decade, and I lived through that. Those were my early years of work, 70s and 80s. I'm sorry, 80s and 90s. 1984, Intel announced they're moving their chip fabrication plants to the Pacific Rim. Reverse that. Put a penalty on outsourcing American industry to foreign lands. Put a bonus. Put a tax credit. Put a hiring credit for American business. Let's bring back industry to the United States and Canada. For God's sake, stop the stupidity in the policy. The North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, was nothing more than a sellout to the United States labor market. So we got cheaper trucks made and cheaper cars made in Mexico. Well, fine. Let that be a subsidiary. But don't do it at the expense of the U.S. economy. Do it in conjunction with the U.S. economy. There are many other things I would do. Bring on the Tesla energy mechanisms. They're all being suppressed. Bring on the hydrogen fuel cell cars. Bring on the newer electric cars. I don't really like electric cars, but if you're going to have a hydrogen fuel cell, and I've been reading about what Toyota's been doing, I would really do some partnerships with Toyota because they've got turbocharged ammonia mixed with water to feed the hydrogen system. I've been wondering for the last several years, how are they going to store the hydrogen in order to feed the hydrogen the fuel cells? They call them fuel cells. Hydrogen, oxygenated, makes water, and it's very powerful. How are they going to store the hydrogen? And the Japanese figured it out. It's ammonia, NH3, 1 nitrogen, 3 hydrogen. But they needed to turbocharge with a little bit of water injection. So it's a steam hydrogen fuel cell. And they needed the turbo in order to get the power to go from 0 to 60. I mean, having a car powered by ammonia to get the hydrogen, that's all well and good. Unless you can get speed with it, unless you can get acceleration with it, it's not going to displace the combustion engine that is really getting long in the tooth. We need to get to the anti-gravitational locomotion, propulsion. I mean, you had the movie Blade Runner 2050. Well, they showed it. I mean, this is real. They're actually using anti-gravitational levitation propulsion systems on U.S. military bases right now. And you got to be a military person, soldier, agent, in order to witness it. Okay, there's a lot that I would do. These are some of them. And I would love to be an economic consultant. I would love that. Not so much a financial consultant, but economic consultant with the financial twist. I would love that. And it might happen.
A recent guest spoke with us about 15-minute cities and C40 cities. His thought was by having a lot of people living in small areas, those areas will turn into ghettos. Your thoughts?
Totally misses the point. Totally misses the point. The 15-minute cities are designed for total control, for credit scoring on the banking side, for access to your money, for elimination of natural gas and total electric dependence so they can turn off your electricity and you're out of action. Total control of your front door by means of a central control, a central house for, checking your social score, your credit score. And furthermore, if you're in a smart city and you use a cell phone, then you'll have AI devices, AI software checking your word content, your message content, and if you have violations, then suddenly you have no access to your bank account, and you have to go apply and justify your actions on your text messaging and cell phones and social net to a bunch of fascist fucks. I call them an extermination center, not a ghetto.
Are white people moving out of urban areas?
I think so. I actually had an email from a client 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and he said, Jim, I spent 3 weeks in New York City. I had a bunch of things to do. I had some family to visit. I was disturbed, but that they were all pro Kamala Harris. I got the heebie-jeebies from something that I can't explain, like vibration, something or other. And he said, I got to tell you something, Jim. I was in Manhattan. I was in Brooklyn. I was in Bronx. I did not see a lot of white people. In Manhattan, I saw a lot of Chinese people. I saw more white people in Brooklyn and Bronx and Queens. But in New York City proper, in the what is it, 5 boroughs, there's a lot of blacks. And here's a trivia piece for you. What city in the globe, the entire planet Earth, what city has the most black population? I was guessing that it might be like Nairobi, Kenya, or like Lagos, Nigeria. No, it's New York City. It's New York City. Now, as the businesses leave New York City, as the commercial property declines in value in New York City and the bankruptcies pile up, as the migrants pile in, including the migrants from other states like Florida being bussed in, Florida is busing migrants to New York City. You're going to see the white people leave basically because they're the minority and they're being targeted for assaults on the street. The untold story is the big blue cities are suffering a major crime wave that's not reported, and the FBI is telling their cities, we don't want you to report the crime. So yeah, there's an exodus.
What do you think the White Hats are doing?
Managing their victory and avoiding the doomsday devices. And I heard today that in Aurora, Colorado, a bunch of the gangs, the Venezuelan gang, it's called Tren de Aragua, or the Aragua Train. Their word for train is T-R-E-N. It's pronounced the same way, train. So the Aragua Train had a bunch of members arrested in Aurora, Colorado, when they were threatening to kill the apartment complex manager staff. What I would like to see, this is just my opinion, if you've got an invasion force with paid invaders by the Soros Fund, then I would put $100 million bounty on Alex Soros's head, and I would put $100 bounty on any killed migrant engaged in criminal activity. No trial. There's no rights. You can't say to an arrested Venezuelan gang member, hey, wait a minute, we're going to have to read you your rights, your Miranda. No. They're not citizens. They don't have rights. And if they're engaged as an invasion force with violent activity, criminal activity, I say put a bounty on their heads. Now, maybe that's an option that the White Hats are evaluating. They're dealing now with managing the victory, controlling the vote fraud in the 6 or 8 battleground states. We know who they are. It's really quite interesting how the battleground states became a focus of attention. And this is pure marketing research. What states do you need to win in order to win the national election? Well, you got Pennsylvania, you got Illinois, you got Georgia, now maybe Nevada, North Carolina, Virginia. Those are the battleground states. Wisconsin and Michigan. I think Michigan's going to be watched like hawks. I expect arrests to happen in Michigan. I expect Whitmer to be gone. And nobody's talking about that. She's going to be the worst violator in the election fraud in a nation where all the battleground states are being very closely watched. Very interesting. She has obstructed every election reform in Michigan. She's running a fascist state. And for those who think I'm confused, no, I'm not confused a bit. If the government aligns with various sectors of the economy, including big tech and social media and the news networks, if they align with those groups, those sectors of the economy, to create a criminal state, to enable crime and fraud, to violate rights, to eliminate free speech, to foment war, to open the borders, okay, that is a fascist structure where the government is joining with the various sectors of the economy. And we know who they are. You know, the media favored Kamala. I mean, it's ridiculous. the polls, the media, the representation of the campaign stops, the media, the debate. It was a 3-on-1 punching fight, and Trump did well. Okay, that's the structure, fascist structure. The communist and Marxist type, they're synonymous. Not exactly, but I use them in a synonymous manner. The communist Marxist element is the policies of eliminating free speech, of forced confiscation of guns, which is a violation of the Second Amendment, the jailing and political attacks using the FBI and the courts, like the two major cases in New York City and Atlanta, the joke cases. With each one of them, Jim, I've been said they will go nowhere. They will drop them at the end, and that's exactly what's happening. They're dropping them at the end, and I think everyone involved, like the prosecutor and the judge, they are in line for a Guantanamo. Okay, the White Hats are managing all this. They need to reverse the coup d'etat of the fascist state with their communist policies. There's a fellow named Marcus Raskin. He wrote a book on progressive liberal thought, or whatever, and it's basically the blueprint for adopting and installing and implementing capitalist communism. And we've been seeing it for 4 years. Do you like it? How do you like it? You like the diversity, equity, inclusion bullshit? Do you like the lesbian, gay bullshit? Do you like the economic, social governance bullshit? Or would you rather see the three-letter agencies lose their power from the precedent set by the Chevron deference? That's what I want to see. I want to see return to state power. I want to see Texas join the BRICS. I want to see Texas go on the gold standard and sell their energy for gold and the unit with the BRICS. I want to see Texas lead the nation in reform and have other states, and I want to see California and New York toppled. We actually saw Cuomo make that comment about Chinese infiltration. This is part of the process of what the White Hats are doing. Anyway, big question.
How can our listeners subscribe to the Hat Trick Letter?
Go to golden-jackass.com. See the video if you wish, which is a preview of the newsletter for August, and sign up for the newsletter. You don't have to read the whole thing. It's like a Sunday newspaper. I never read the entire Boston Globe when I was there for 20 years, but I used to buy maybe 30 of them a year. I'd read the business section, the front page section, the sports section. I'd dabble in the food section. The movie section. I always looked at the movie section. Sign up for the newsletter. Support my work. Go and press the consult button. I had 2 people press the consult button yesterday and 1 donation as a result of one interview show that went quite well. I'm very busy with the consults. I've done 770 of them now in 5 years. Some are extraordinary in their value. I'd say 1 in 20 I benefit from in a big way, like boots on the ground. What are you seeing? What are you seeing in North Carolina? What are you seeing in Houston? What are you seeing in Chicago? That was another one recently. What are you seeing outside Cincinnati with solar farms? Wow. Outside Cincinnati, Ohio? Yep. So golden-jackass.com. Sign up for the newsletter. Do a consult. Hit the donate button. If you don't want to do the newsletter and you want to support my work, hit the donate button and hit it regularly. Just help me out by being such a big fat mouth, identifying and pointing out and exposing evil and fraud. I have been the object of a long list of very bizarre events that have cost me dearly. So I'm frequently asking for aid because the losses that I've suffered in 7 years has been 7 figures. 7 figures in dollar terms. So help me out. If you're wealthy, hit the sponsor button. Make a large donation for my mission. I thank the Lord Jesus Christ. I really do. I have about 10 different stories where I had a very big, like an extortion bill or a bill for a fire. Fire is a device from Satan, and I've had 4 of them since April. 4 fires since April. Help me out. Sign up for the newsletter if you don't want to help me out. Help yourself. There's a lot of information in the newsletter. It's a labor of love, and for me, it's actually therapy for the stressful times that I have dealing with the unusual events that I regard as dark forces attacks. And I got stories. You want to do a consult call just to hear, well, have your questions answered and then have some of the events described? They are out of this world. 7 dead people, 6 fires in 3 years, 3 deadly car crashes, unbelievable events, 4 or 5 extortion cases, but with the help of Christians and others who are like supporters of the truth movement. So my client base is really a mix of Christians and truth warriors, truth defenders and Christian warriors. So golden-jackass.com. A lot of people tell me they really like the Gold Radio format because we touch in an organized manner on a lot of different topics. So I know you got a lot of listeners, Jim.
Jim, thank you for being on goldradio.fm.
Well, it's been my pleasure. Thank you.